What can we do to make the process work better in addition to the financial process? And we think this is an important part that will help eliminate or reduce costs. We think that there should be a formal, mandatory process, rotating through various state agencies, not making it a political process, making a nonpartisan decision on how it's going to be done, but it should be done on a formal, established basis as opposed to either a haphazard basis or on a request-only type basis. Other issues would be temporarily suspending controlling board expenditures, not necessary to maintain essential state programs and services, or even looking at paperless technology. Now, obviously, that can create other issues, but we think that this is something that needs to be investigated and looked at, and we see that other states are being successful as they implement paperless technology processes. Looking at streamlining government from an efficiency standpoint, we think important to that would be developing and implementing a more comprehensive sunset review plan. Each state agency should be looked at in a certain period of time. I would say generally we've thought about a 10-year plan, but obviously that's up for discussion. It can be a rotating approach, but it would apply to all state agencies and cabinet level agencies. Do we need all the overhead? Do we need all the redundancy called by multiple layers of government, as Gene talked about? I mean, we have approximately 5,600 units of government at state and local level, 24 state departments, 942 cities and villages, over 1,300 townships, 88 counties, over 600 school districts, and then on top of that, 600 special taxing districts. The criteria used to set up all these particular entities were probably done in the 1800s to some degree, sometimes in the 1900s, but mostly in the 1800s. Are those criteria still really applicable today, and do they make sense? I think one other thing, looking at the streamlining of government, another important issue would be looking at the requirement of a centralized administration and collection of municipal income taxes. We have multiple jurisdictions. They each are doing it in a different way with a different set of staff. There is some way of coordinating that right now through the RETA or CCA agencies, but that's not mandatory, and that is haphazard in terms of how particular entities join that or stay within those particular organizations. They're an example of how coordination can work and be beneficial, but we should really look at that from a statewide standpoint and look at the issue of whether that should be mandatory. From a strategic planning standpoint, we feel that there should be long-range financial planning outlook. This should be a process that should be established and should be consistently looked at. The state of Florida has been very successful in doing that. In fact, they actually have a constitutional amendment that requires a strategic planning process be implemented every year, looking forward over the next 3 budget cycles, identifying issues that are going to affect the budget from either federal payments or state issues, natural disaster type things, which on Florida, from a standpoint of hurricanes or tornadoes, could be very substantial in terms of the impact to the state. We should be having that type of system in place in Ohio as well. We can involve outside experts. We can look at best practices of other states in regard to strategic planning. But right now, the focus is strictly on the budget. It's strictly on that 2-year period, and there really is no long-term strategic planning that is really available to the public, and it should be. We'd like to determine the appropriate size of the rainy day fund and look forward to actually implementing that particular goal. And then also we think the state agencies should be using a zero-based budgeting process, starting with the 2012 to 2013 budget process. From a revenue enhancement standpoint, we think that not only in terms of the administration of municipal income taxes, there should be consistency on how those taxes are computed. And right now, because of the differences in particular jurisdictions, it is very complex. It is very time-consuming and creates a lot of effort in terms of understanding, especially for people coming into the state, to actually apply all the different municipal policies. So we think establishing a uniform policy actually will have a revenue enhancement associated with it. We should look at ways of opportunities for increasing user fees for specific issues. That can be from anything from state park fees to other types of fees, but we should look at ways of opportunities to increase those particular fees if appropriate. And also look at ways of either taking specific fees that are in place right now and taking them out of the general fund and focusing on particular aspects that they're appropriate for. Gas and fuel fees could be applied directly to the Department of Transportation as opposed to be part of the general fund. So I mentioned that Washington was doing some things. What are other states doing? There really is a lot going on outside of Ohio, and if you really look at what's happening within Ohio, other than the budget commission that's in place that really has only met once or twice and really has not released much information at this point in time, we're really behind the 8 ball in terms of comparison to what other states are doing. New Jersey has a privatization task force in place, and they've actually started to privatize and sell certain assets. Florida has a long-range financial outlook, which I talked about. They also have a council on efficient government that's in place and working. The Virginia Commonwealth has a competition council that looks at ways that they can privatize and bring lower costs into the government process. They also have a mandatory strategic planning process. Nevada has what they call yellow page tests, where they look and see what particular function within the government is actually being done in the marketplace. And if it reaches a critical level, they say maybe we should be privatizing or looking at those particular entities to do the work that the state is doing. West Virginia has privatized its workers' compensation reform. Michigan has a turnaround fund. There are paperless projects in Illinois, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and these are just some examples of what's going on outside the state of Ohio. So in summary, we think from our standpoint, we should be focusing on containing or eliminating costs, looking at efficiency and streamlining government, the long-range financial planning through strategic planning, and possibly looking at revenue enhancement opportunities. So the question then becomes, what can we do? What can we do as individuals? And I think there are really 5 things we can do. First is become more knowledgeable. And if you look in the brochure, there's a reference to our website, ohioscpa.com. You can find a copy of our white paper. You can find some of the details behind some of the supplements that we've made to the white paper and references and links to other organizations, what they're doing and what other states are doing. So you can find lots of information on our website. You can get information from Gene and John. There is lots of information out there. Become knowledgeable on what the issues are. Pick what's important to you. What you're going to find is there's a multitude of things. Some of it may be important to you, some of it may not. Some of it you probably will not agree with. I can't tell you that everything that we've said is going to be agreeable to everybody in this room. So pick what's important to you and become vocal. Talk to people around you, talk to people, your friends, your neighbors, your people in your workplace. And if you have the opportunity, speak to people that are running for office or currently are in office. Identify those in office or candidates that are running that support what you're saying. And then finally, hold those people accountable when they are in office. I think that's the most important thing. We have to hold people accountable for what they're going to say as part of the election process. And I'll turn it over to John.
Gene and Jim have provided, I think, an outstanding overview of thinking on the scope of the issues and especially focused on some of the things that might be done long term. I would like to focus my comments on some of the shorter term issues for how do you close a budget gap of the size that we have in the state of Ohio and do it in a way that contributes to a longer term approach to these things that both of them advocated in their comments. You all have before you this document, this is going to be in the next few minutes a little bit like those zoo tours that maybe some of you have been on, you know, where you go around and you get to see all the exhibits, except I'm the driver and we're going 80 miles an hour. And what I'm going to be walking through here is for you all a way of getting a sense of, oh, where are the gorillas and where are the lions and that sort of thing, if you want to make sure you get those things into your tour.